Have you ever felt like your body is suddenly working against you? One day you're cruising along, the next you're dealing with hot flashes, brain fog, stubborn weight gain, and sleepless nights, all seemingly just out of nowhere. If this sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. Perimenopause and menopause can feel like a mystery, and let's be honest, most of us were not given a roadmap for what to expect. But what if you had a go-to resource with real solutions, expert advice, and a supportive community to help you through it? That's exactly what we're talking about today. My guest, Carin Luna-Ostaseski, knows that struggle firsthand. When she started experiencing perimenopause symptoms, she was frustrated by the lack of clear answers. So she created Hot or Just Me, a one-stop shop for managing menopause with trusted products, expert insights, and a community of women who get it. But Carin isn't just an advocate for women's health. She's also a trailblazing entrepreneur. As the first American woman and Hispanic person to create a Scotch whiskey brand, she built Sia Scotch whiskey from the ground up, proving that reinvention is possible at any stage of life. So this episode is all about taking back control of your body, your health, and your confidence in your 40s and 50s. If you've been wondering what's happening to your body and how to feel like yourself again, you don't want to miss this conversation. And if you're new to Midlife Mojo, welcome. I'm Lisa DuPree, certified exercise physiologist and health coach, and I've been helping people transform their health and fitness for more than 20 years. My mission is to make fitness and fat loss simple, sustainable, and achievable for women like you. So if you're ready to cut through the confusion, get some real answers about menopause, and learn how to flourish in midlife, let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Carin. Your journey is so inspiring, and I'm so excited to have you here. So I just want to dive right in. Can you share what has inspired you to create Hot or Just Me?
Absolutely, sure. So thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I think my journey started in my early 40s. And it was a simple question I was asking myself, and pretty much everyone around me was, is it hot or is it just me? And that led me to realize first that it was mostly just me, and also that I was well into perimenopause. I had other symptoms that followed, like brain fog, anxiety, hair loss, and more. And turning to my doctors at first wasn't very helpful. And then eventually came to have some conversations around HRT, which isn't quite an option for me yet. So I found some amazing products and services that have made a big difference in my life and wanted to create a community of support and practical advice and products that could help women in this stage of life.
Yes, that's what I'm so excited to hear about. We get all these symptoms. We're not really sure what is this about. And then the next thing is I feel like we just go on a search to be like, okay, how can I fix this? Or how can I make this less or even just manageable? Yeah, because I know a lot of women can really feel overwhelmed or even caught off guard when they are getting into perimenopause. And then they're surprised that of what symptoms show up. And at least for me, I was surprised that these symptoms have been persisting for years. It's not just like a really short time period for me. And there are some women out there. I know I talked to my doctor about this. I was like, I'm in menopause. I'm like post menopause. And I was still having all these symptoms. And she's like, yeah, some people just have them for the rest of their lives. So I was like, no way, you're kidding me. So I know you mentioned some of the common signs you were seeing. Are there any other common signs that women should be
Yeah.
looking out for that you
I could give you
missed?
the top 10. So,
Yeah.
irregular periods in terms of perimenopause. So, this stage in life is the time leading up to the day of menopause, which is when you haven't had your period for 12 months. And then everything after that would be postmenopause. So, in the 3 to 10 years that you might be experiencing irregular periods. So this might be either your change in flow, a lot heavier or a lot lighter. It might be different days, not landing exactly on your previous cycles. You'll experience, I hope not, but chances are hot flashes and night sweats. So just having that flush around your neck, your chest, your back, your face, and yeah, your body then thinks that you are overheating, so it triggers sweat. So your night sweats. Insomnia, waking up in the middle of the night, vaginal dryness and low libido, brain fog, and memory concentration issues. Mood swings, maybe they might be even more than usual. Some people might call this meno rage or just feeling really irritable. You might experience some joint and muscle aches during this time in life. And then weight gain. What you did before isn't working as well. So those are pretty common. And then post-menopause, you might add in some heart and health issues, bone density loss, and a whole nother slew of other symptoms that come along with that time in life.
Yeah, it's quite a laundry list
Yes.
of things. Like
Yeah.
especially if they're all like coming on within just like a couple years. It's oh my gosh, it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's just the most common, right? There's almost 100 symptoms, and some are really obscure, like ringing in your ears or frozen shoulder, burning tongue sensation. So there's all these. Oh, another one that was curious to me was phantom smells. So you think that you're smelling gasoline or smoke when you're really not, when it's not there. So yeah, there's quite a few symptoms out there.
Yeah, I don't know. It fascinates me as somebody who's got degrees in biology and then exercise physiology, especially now that kind of I'm going through this whole midlife thing. It was wow. I'm even more fascinated about what our bodies are doing and how they're changing. Yeah.
Yeah, and how our hormones can control so much of our bodies, our minds, our skin, our heart, our breasts, just so many different things. And we see it, and especially as our kids hit puberty, right? Their bodies are changing so quickly, or the second puberty, as some people call it, because you are experiencing these mental, emotional, and physical changes that come with this change in hormones.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I had my daughter late. I was one of those geriatric
Me
pregnancies.
too. Yeah,
I was about
38.
36. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hit like perimenopause and got into menopause and stuff like that. I was going through that when she was little, but yeah, like we hit adolescence and I hit like the peak of symptoms at the same time. You can imagine what it was
Yeah,
like.
so we call it a hormone hurricane household right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that. The hormone hurricane. Yeah. I wanted to touch on hot flashes and night sweats. Like night sweats, I think were the worst for me, and like had me going back to the doctor was the hot flashes. That's what came on first, and that's what persisted. And I know those are really like two of the most dreaded symptoms.
Yeah.
Like for me, at that time, I was teaching and I was teaching college. So I had classes. I stood up in front of undergraduates of anywhere from 85 to over 100 of them. And then all of a sudden, I would just be on fire and sweating. And you can just imagine they're just looking at me like, what? Like, why are you beat red and now you're sweating and you're just standing up there? It was just, so anyway, that's what I was like, oh, I got to find something. Yeah. What are some of the things that you are aware of that can help them?
Yeah.
And maybe why is that so common during menopause? Maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, estrogen controls the part of your brain that regulates the temperature. And so your body thinks it's hotter than it is. So it triggers the warm feeling, in near your face and neck. And so you get that flush, right? And then your body triggers the sweats to cool you down. So that's just what's happening in your body. And then in terms of what you can do, obviously HRT is a solution for many women. If that's not something for you just yet, or maybe not at all, there are other things that you can do to regulate some of these moments, right? So, a first one that I like to tell people is to cut out caffeine. I know that is not popular. And so, if you can't cut it out, maybe just have your morning cup of coffee in the daytime and then don't have any afternoon coffees. And same thing for alcohol, unfortunately. As someone who used to be in the liquor industry and spent 10 years telling people to drink, I've now become someone who tells people maybe you should drink a little bit less or maybe just during the daytime because that helps to have a better night's sleep. And so if you are sleeping through the night, you won't wake up. And if you are having a hot flash, it might not affect you as much and cause that night sweat. I like to tell people to take magnesium at night as well, which also helps with sleep and your exercise as well as exercising in the morning. Trying to stay away from heavy meals at night is another big one. And then I think about like what you're wearing, right? So what's on your body should be layered or breathable so that you are feeling hot. You can easily just take off a layer and it's still an outfit that you could rock. Same thing if you're wearing makeup. We have a makeup setting spray on our site that's helpful for controlling some of that wetness on your face. And then we also have a variety of fans. So we've personally tested, I think, 30 different fans for noise and comfort and have the best ones recommended on the site as well. So either handheld fans that you could either prop up next to your computer as well when you're working, or one that you could wear around your neck, especially if you're outside or if you're doing gardening or something. And then I personally love this brand from Hot Girl Pearls. So it's a chiclet bracelet, and there's also a necklace that they made as well. And it's freezable. So you put it in the freezer, charge it for a few hours, and then it cools you down at your pulse points and it lasts a really long time. So that's another one that I love. And then we have a selection of sleepwear as well that's very breathable, especially at night. And then I would say not to keep your house the Arctic cooler that I have, but maybe just set it for times when you know that you're going to get hot. So for me, it kind of triggers somewhere between 60 and 67 as the night goes on. And then it cools down to like maybe 59 around 2 a.m. And then it starts to warm back up in the morning so that my family's not walking around with sweaters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yes, there's so many things that we can do, lifestyle related, that there's going to probably be some resistance out there to the caffeine,
Mm,
maybe the reducing or eliminating alcohol. I know for me, another trigger was spicy foods, and I
yes.
love spicy
Yeah.
foods, but it was so bad for me. Like I had to make those lifestyle changes. So I did. I gave up caffeine, which is hard for me because I was born and raised in the South and love iced tea and drink iced
Yep.
tea a lot. Yeah, so that's what I would just drink. I would drink coffee in the morning and iced tea like the rest of the day. But yeah, that was hard coming off of that. But yeah, cutting down on alcohol, very infrequently having that, and the spicy foods, those made huge differences. Like, just
Mhm.
as far as a lifestyle change, always as an exercise physiologist, exercise is going to help. Yeah, you're probably going to sweat when you're exercising, but it does help longer term. It helps your body to be able to regulate your body temperature a little bit better as well. So your body
Mhm.
gets more efficient with that. And then I love all the different products. So there's things that you can try. It's not hopeless. We're not just stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in terms of exercise, even the kinds of exercise that you do later in life changes. I'm sure you can talk a lot more to this, but about more strength training exercises, especially in our lower bodies, so that we can avoid any kind of falls or injuries later in life.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier some of the changes like penia and osteoporosis developing over time. And for longevity, definitely that weight bearing exercise is going to help with that. Either stop that progression or slow the progression, depending on other factors, how much you're at risk for it. But there's definitely that exercise component makes a big difference. Yeah. Have you found that there are any kind of myths about hot flashes that we need to address or debunk, anything that doesn't work that you found that people are like really like pushing?
The one that I just have a hard time with is when people try to push some kind of one size fits all supplement, right? It's just something that I stay away from. We don't have any supplements right now on the site for that reason. I want to make sure that if we do, it's maybe component based, but not, it's not realistic to think that there's this magic pill for everyone that's going to magically fix everything.
Yeah, yeah. That speaks to me on a very visceral level as a health coach, because as a health coach, we always approach the process of coaching and our clients as this what was going to work for this person is not going to always work for everybody else. So it's a highly personalized approach. So I love that. It's like there's not just one thing that's going to fix everything. No sleep, the night sweats and the sleep were like I was such a big fan of sleep. So, thinking about that being such a critical piece of the puzzle and going through perimenopause, even in menopause, postmenopause, insomnia, the night sweats, what are some things that you have found that are great strategies for improving sleep and sleep quality during this time?
Yeah, so I touched on some of them, but I'll go a little bit deeper. So, first, my philosophy is that sleep affects everything, right? If you have a bad night's sleep, think about your next morning. You are probably a little grumpy and groggy. You might have more caffeine than you think that you need. You make bad food decisions. You will probably skip the gym because you're tired. You'll have any kind of like brain fog and concentration issues during the day. And then when it comes time to be with your partner, you might not be in the mood because you've got low libido. So sleep, if you rewind and just say, okay, all of this could have been resolved if I had just had a good night's sleep. So what can I do to prioritize sleep? We talked about caffeine and alcohol and sleep temperature in your rooms, exercising in the morning so your body's not overactive or stimulated by the time it's bedtime, but also just winding down some other things. Like, I know, again, this is not a popular thing to say, but your devices. I'm personally guilty of the same thing, just like one last email or one last thing. If you have that kind of need, just put in some earplugs and listen to an audiobook or a podcast and just like wind down that way. Also, if you do find that you're having a hard time going to sleep or you wake up, there's a podcast that I like, or not a podcast, I should say, YouTube video called Yoga Nidra. And it's just a really beautiful wind down exercise of calming your body and doing like a body scan. And it really helps for sleep. Calm has a lot of sleep stories as well. There's some that I think I've heard so many times that as soon as they do the intro, it's almost like a Pavlovian effect where I just nod off. And yeah, I think setting, your room up for success too. If you need blackout curtains, or maybe a blackout eye mask. We've got a great one on hotorjustme.com as well. And then if you have a partner that snores, to make sure that you're wearing earplugs so that you get that sound night of sleep. And then, yeah, if you need your own cooling blanket, as opposed to having one that you share with your partner, to be able to separate your body temperatures a little bit, and making sure, again, that your sleepwear is the right one for you.
Yeah, I love the idea of a cooling blanket. I hadn't thought about that. I've seen like the cooling like pillows. So I have one of
Yeah.
those, but a cooling blanket, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, I've started taking a magnesium supplement at night, but I've heard from people hit or miss on that one, that for some people it gives them some tummy issues. So, if it's starting with a smaller amount, if that's something that works. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so many things make a big difference, and it really is important. And it matters because our hormones are changing. And you did mention early on, like weight changes. And I think it was in episode 46 of the Midlife Mojo podcast. I actually talked about sleep. It was all about hormonal health. And so one of those was around sleep and the leptin, which is that satiety hormone. It without sleep, it doesn't get produced as much. Your body's not making enough of it. So you don't feel as full. So you might tend to overeat. Plus you're staying up longer, you're awake longer, there's more top opportunity to eat. And then it ramps up, lack of sleep ramps up ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. So it's like a storm
Yeah.
of things that are going on. Like you said, like it comes into a hurricane of all
Yeah.
these things, like a negative feedback loop. Yeah, that's great. And so you talked about some of the products, some of the bedtime routines. One of the things, though, you mentioned that I really wanted to circle back to is like the libido and just the intimacy factor. Because you mentioned some of the changes that are going on in our body early on, vaginal dryness, things like that. And then we've got mood changes, and then we've got sleep not being good. Yeah, so many people experience changes in libido, like mood issues, things like that. And that really affects the intimacy with our partners. And that has a direct relationship to how we navigate through life with our intimate partners. So, what are things that or what advice do you have for navigating
Yeah.
these changes with a partner?
It's a big one. And I think that the first thing is to just get comfortable around the topic, right? I think a lot of people shy away from it, but it's very important and it's worth discussing. And also to know that men are also going through a version of this called andropause, where we have a decline in our sex hormones, so do they, and testosterone being the decline for men. And it affects them in similar ways, right? There is hair loss, there's weight gain, there's headaches, mood swings, depression, insomnia, low energy. There's also some mild to moderate erectile dysfunction that comes along in this time in life. So just to know that the conversation doesn't need to be in a silo, right? You can talk about this with your partner because chances are they might be going through something similar too. So just have that communication with each other. Things that you can do for your own health is to make sure that you stay hydrated and drink plenty of water to avoid dehydration. Consider pelvic floor exercise like Kegels. There's also great pelvic exercise trainers out there that connect to your phone, so you have an app to see your progress. And then using lubricants. So there's a collection of both oil-based and water-based lubricants. And then we also have moisturizers on our site. There's also some pleasure tools, bedside and handheld. And it's surprisingly the most popular section of our website right now. So it's nice to see that women are looking for the answers. And then I also like to add that I think that the mind is the biggest sex organ, right? And so how do you find connection with your partner? And I'm not somebody who can watch porn. I get really uncomfortable because I think that I don't look like that or my body doesn't do that. And through the years, I've discovered a couple apps that are really wonderful, that they are erotic audio stories. I know it's going to sound funny, but they are really fantastic. Two examples are Dipsea, Dipsea, and the other is called Quinn. And what I like about these is that it kind of gets you it gets your mind out of the way, right? Like you're not focused on your own self-esteem about, oh, my body doesn't look like the way it used to, or I'm not in the mood, but versus saying, let's just listen to a story and see what happens. And so it's fun to just take the pressure off. And it's almost like instead of watching a movie, you just both sit back and listen to the story and you can get in the mood that way. And then you have this like idea, this fantasy in your head, and it's really beautiful. And then if you are alone, you can also listen to a collection of just self-pleasuring exercises as well. And then in terms of connecting with your partner, I think it's naive to think that we know our partners, right? Like we're always changing. And so to think that they're not evolving and we're not evolving. And so it's who are we together and how's our relationship evolving? And I discovered a program called the Gottman Institute, which is a wonderful predictor of divorce rates. And most of it is centered around giving appreciations to each other. But they do have this wonderful app called Love Decks, which is on your phone. And they're just questions that you can ask your partner in the car, on a date night, whenever. And then they also have a series of, like, they call them the salsa deck. And so they're mild, medium, and spicy. And they're just questions that you can ask your partner about what turns them on, what gets them in the mood. And I think it's a beautiful way as a kind of a starter for intimacy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love those ideas. Hadn't thought of so many of those things. But yeah, that's a great idea. I love like having that, like the stories. I think it's a really good opportunity to be able to connect, but also be able to, in your mind, like how you interpret that story. If you're listening to like a steamy passage or something like that, your partner may interpret it slightly differently, but you're still in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And then, yeah, the being able to have that communication is key. And so it's a great time, I think, to be able to try new things, especially if
Yeah.
you've been with your partner for a while and things are changing and you maybe it's not changing in a way you want it to. Look for new ways and being open to try new things, which I think is an amazing thing to do, especially when we get into be our 40s and 50s. And if you have a new partner, like that's a great time to try stuff because
Yeah.
you're new. Everything's new.
Yeah. We're in it for the long haul, right? So you should get to know your partner and what turns them on and be really clear about what your needs are too.
Yeah, speak up for sure. Speak up. Don't be afraid to shy away from it. Yeah, just really taking some of, I feel like, the shame of it away, of not feeling comfortable in our bodies or not like liking what happened or like even just wishing that our bodies were different. No sense in shaming yourself. And it may not ever go back to the way it is. And that's okay. But what is it about it now? And I feel, at least for me, like because I had my child a little bit later in life, going through kind of all these changes in my 40s and 50s, like I learned so much about my body in such a short time. And it just, for me, I have so much more of an appreciation for my body and I know myself so much like better. I know what I want and I don't want. And it really helped empower me to just be grateful for everything that my body can do and be able to really embrace that and celebrate that.
Yeah, it's an amazing time in life where we can celebrate the journeys that we've been on, right? Of our businesses, our careers, our motherhood, and all of the caretaking that's come with it, and just all the lessons that we've learned in life.
That's one of the things, one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast is because it's growing up. I saw my grandmother get into the stage of life and then my mother, and nobody really talked about it at
No.
all. And they weren't really, there was a lot of things that happened and they weren't really happy and with a lot of stuff going on. And I saw that kind of growing up. And I started getting there and I used to think 40 was old, right? When I was like in my teens and when I got into college, I was like, 40 is so old. Oh my gosh. No wonder they're unhappy. And then I got there and I'm like, what the hell? No way. No, we're not doing this. We're going to do things differently. And
Yeah.
we need to talk about this. We need to do
Yeah.
things differently.
Perimenopause, it just wasn't something that, it wasn't a word my mom knew. Like it wasn't discussed. And then the menopause was like, I remember when she was having like hot flashes and night sweats, the air conditioner was jacked up when it would never used to be, right? Because she was always saving money. And all of a sudden it was just like, yeah, we're like walking around in sweaters and whatnot, but it wasn't a conversation. And then as I started getting some of these symptoms, I asked her about her experience. And she said, yeah, in my early 40s is when it started. And so it was almost like just following in lockstep. But yeah, it's just not something that we talked about, that we knew about. And now, thankfully, It's a conversation that we can have, that we're recognizing the symptoms, that hormone replacement therapy is shedding some of the bad reputation that it had from a flawed study years ago, and that women are starting to learn what works for them, the same way that we had to try a couple different birth controls, right, to see which one was the right one. And in similar ways now, there might be different hormones that people need to take to figure out what the right ones are. Just making sure you have the right doctor. I think that's a big one I learned, is that a lot of doctors are just really uneducated. When it comes to menopause, they only get about 3 or 4 hours of training during their residency. And so unless the doctors take an extra step to become educated about it, I like to send people to menopause.org, which has a directory of physicians who have gone through extra certification in menopause. There's, I believe, about 2,500 practitioners on the list, but there's also telehealth services like Alloy, MIDI Health, and Evernow that also have offerings if there's not someone in your area.
Great resource. Yeah, I'll definitely put a link to that in the show notes for sure. I think that's super important because I just thinking about really advocating for ourselves. There's so many more resources. The conversation has opened up so much more and people are more open about it. And that's really one of the things that I was so excited about when I went to your website and found it, because you really are honing in on that sense of community and being this resource. And can you talk about how that came about and why community is so important for women during this time?
Yeah, I call it girlfriend medicine because we lean on each other and we're constantly asking each other, are you getting this? Is this normal? Has this happened to you? And all the symptoms are coming at us at different times, different levels of severity and stages, some not at all. So it's just that level of community is everything. It's so important to just know that you're not alone and that, yes, this is normal and that we're all going to go through it. I think that the stat is that there are 1 billion women across the world that are in this age in life. This is a shared experience, and the hormone experience is universal, right? To our kids, to our partners, to ourselves. So everyone's going through it at the same time. So I think it's just really important to have that sense of community during this time. And if you can't find it, then just create one. So that's basically what I ended up doing.
Yeah. So thinking about, is there one piece of advice or one thing that you wish that we had talked about that you want to cover at this point that can really help all of us embrace and navigate perimenopause and menopause with confidence? What would that be?
I think the big one then, it took me a long time to figure out. I'm a mother of 3, and so I think self-care is always at the bottom of my list. And I've learned through the years that it needs to get moved up to the very top. Because if I don't have energy, I can't perform well in my business. I can't perform well as a mom. I can't be a great partner, a great daughter, a great sister, a great friend. And so just taking care of yourself and whatever that means for you, if that's making sure you make the right lifestyle changes so that you take good care of this vessel that we're in for this journey, just to make sure that it's maintained correctly and that it's optimized for success. But then also there might be like mental health too, right? Making sure that you take that time for yourself. If you're feeling anxious, anxiety is a big symptom and during this time as well that women might not recognize, but heart palpitations are common during this era and people might confuse it for depression or a heart attack. And so definitely always consult your doctor or physician, but just also know that anxiety creeps up during this time. So to prioritize that self-care, learn if it's meditation, if it's box breathing, whatever self-coping tools that you need. And then just a little treat for yourself. Maybe it's, listen, you have a playlist of special songs you like to hear, or maybe it's a collection of photos that you look at that make you happy. Personally, I have a guilty pleasure. I like to go to the movies by myself and watch a matinee. I might get to do that, I don't know, once every 3 or 4 months, but it's such a treat just to spend 2 hours alone in a theater with my own popcorn. Whatever that minute or moment of self-care is for you, just to find it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. I love that example. That is amazing.
I haven't done it in a while, so I need to do it.
I'm a big proponent of self-care. And a lot of the women that I work with, they end up coming to health coaching because they've put everybody else first for so long.
Yeah.
And they realize I can't keep going like this, or I don't want to keep going like this as well. And so figuring out what does that look like, and it's different for everybody. It's not going to be the same, but that old metaphor of when you're on the plane, they always say put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on the child or whoever's with you if they need help. It's like that self-care piece so that you can show up as strong and vibrant and do all the amazing things that you're doing in the world. So many things that you brought up today that are, I don't know, so valuable. So I really thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this information with the listeners. Where can people find Hot or Just Me and connect with you more if they want to learn more about your work, products, your resources, everything that you have to offer?
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. It's just been a pleasure chatting with you today. On our website, and it's linked in your show notes, we have our products and resources for hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, low libido, insomnia, fatigue, hair and skin changes. We have some amazing bundle sets. Stay cool and calm. Welcome to the club. Keep it spicy. And we have a collection of books and gifts as well. We also have a discount code for your listeners. If they use the code Midlife Mojo, they qualify for 10% off of their order. And we could be found on all social media at Hot or Just Me.
Wonderful. Yeah. So that's the place to go to get all the things. And I know there, you were mentioning like books and things like that. There is a card on your website that I love. So there are like cards or something
Yeah.
like that. So good. You've picked out and curated so many amazing things there. It's a great place to go, one-stop shop there. So thank you
Oh, thank
so
you. Gift
much.
cards too. So you could gift
Oh,
to
okay.
a girlfriend so they can shop for Mother's Day or just any day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful thing. All right. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you here.
Likewise. Thank you.